5, we'll go to verse 6 tonight. Again, Ephesians 5, verse number 6, dealing with how to walk worthy in the Lord. If you're there, go ahead and say amen. Amen. And how about saying again to let me know that you're still there? Amen. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 6 says, "Let no man deceive you with vain words." Now, my son asked me about that, so I wanted to wait until we got to church so I could explain it. He said at the dinner table, "What does vain mean?" When he talks about not using the Lord's name in vain and not to speak in vain words and things of that nature, and a lot of times that's misinterpreted or misexplained, but it simply means not to speak too proudly, not to speak boastfully, and also not to speak and not to use a word and take away the glory from. In other words, to use the name of the Lord in vain is you're using God's name without any glory. So you're speaking of God and not giving Him any glory. You're just using His name just to use His name. So you're doing it in a vain manner. Not to give Him the glory, but something else, or not at all. That's what it means to use the name of the Lord in vain. Amen. So that's a little lesson there. But to speak or to use something without glory, or to speak with disrespect, that's vain. It says, "Let no man deceive you with vain words, deceitful words, proudful words, disrespectful words, for because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them." Now what things come upon them? Back in verse 5 it explains, "For this you know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God." Now, how do we become a clean person if everybody's unclean? We know this through Jesus Christ. Through the blood of Christ, we become clean. That's the only way. Through the blood of Christ, Adam and Eve became unclean. God rejected them. Mankind became unclean. God rejected them. Without the shedding of blood, Hebrews 9:22, there's no remission of sin. So Christ became sin for us. Now God accepts us. So that's how we become clean. What then are these children of disobedience? Those are them or they that disobey God's command to accept Christ. Who are those that disobey? Well, from the beginning it was those that disobeyed God. From the very beginning, those that followed Satan and fell with him. And that same spirit of Antichrist that does now already work. They rejected God's command then. They reject God's command now. They've been the children of disobedience from the beginning. So the same spirit worked then, the same spirit works now. And those that reject Christ fall in line with the same manner and same way of thinking, and will do in like manner the same things that the world does. They do those things because they are those things. They act that way because they are of their father, the devil. Now let's read on. It says in verse 7, "Be not ye therefore partakers with them." Now this is something that they are expected to do. Now I'm separating the two here because it should be separated, but don't allow us to look down upon somebody just because you're saved and they're not. God's the one that made us clean if you're saved, not us. So don't get boastful and speak with vain words. Amen. "Be not ye therefore partakers with them." They're going to do these things. We live in the world. Again, Paul is teaching and preaching and writing to the church, us, and he's teaching us what, children? How to walk worthy. How to walk worthy in the sight of God. Now, we are clean according to Christ and through Christ. Now, how do we walk acceptable? How do we walk clean? How do we walk how we ought to walk? Don't be partakers with them. Of what? Go back to verse 5. For this you know that no whoremonger, well, don't be a whoremonger. Nor unclean person, don't be an unclean person. Nor covetous man, don't be a covetous man. Nor an idolater, don't be an idolater. Or hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Let no man deceive you with vain words. And it goes to verse 7. Be not ye therefore partakers with them. That's how they are expected to act. Now, let's read on. Verse 8. For ye were sometimes darkness. Now, it seems in our current way of speaking in English, it left out something there. But that's the way it's put. Now, ye were sometimes darkness. We're in darkness. That's not what it says. Ye were sometimes darkness. We were darkness. If you're saved, at one time, ye were darkness. That's what you were. He's describing your past state. You were darkness. You were born in sin. That's what you were, dark. You were darkness. In the dark, in sin and disgust, foul, and all these things, that's who you were. But, let's read on. But now are ye light in the Lord, not in ourselves, not in our works, not because we're here tonight, not because of what we've done, but we are light in the Lord. At one time, we were darkness. Now we're light. What does light do? Let's read. Walk as children of light. As you will get to in a minute, light makes things manifest. It shines a light on things. So once we were in darkness and we blend in, now we are light. If you look to this side of the church tonight, it is mostly dark. There's a noticeable difference between this side of the church and where we're standing right here. At one time, this is where we were, even darker, but now we are light. At one time, we were expected to do those things which are of the darkness and are of the children of disobedience, but now we have seen the light. What does the light do? It exposes things. It reveals things. It shows us things. It shows us what's there and what we should do and step and places we should go. Now, when I walked into the church tonight, we really should have a switch at that back door right when you walk in. It's creepy. I mean, it's creepy. Some of y'all's done it, so you know what I'm talking about. You come in right here, there needs to be a switch. I'm going to start coming in that side. Because you got to walk from there all the way behind this door, and you don't care what switch you hit as long as you get one light on. Well, you're 32 years old. It don't matter. I've seen some of you older ones do it too, so don't make fun of me. You're going to get to the light just as quick as you can when you walk in here by yourself. You're not going to come sit in the dark. You want the light on. Why? Because you want the light. You're not made to live in the darkness. There's something about the light that brings peace to you. There's something about the light that brings a calmness to you. There's something about the light that brings an assurance to you. And that's exactly what Christ has done in our lives. He has brought assurance to our lives. He's brought a peace to our lives. He's brought security to our lives. He's allowed us to see and be able to look around. He's brought assurance into our life that at one time was not there. That's what he's done. When you wake up in the morning, you don't have the same train of thought as those that still live in darkness. When you walk out in your day, you don't walk with the same train of thought as those that live in darkness. Are you following me? Are you with me? Amen. Tragedy has struck Gatlinburg. We prayed for them just a minute ago. Continue to pray for them. Amen. That's around the Bible Belt. You expect to be all kind of Christians up through there, and I expect there is. But those that are not and live up there are facing that tragedy different than those that are saved. Tragedies in your life and things that you face in your life, you will face them differently than those that are in darkness. Because you have seen the light. You live in the light. There's never a time in your life that you were in darkness ever again. Do you get me tonight? Can anybody tell me? You could go ahead and say it. Where did Paul write this? Prison. Thank you. He wrote this in prison. They didn't have LED lighting in prison, and overhead lights and canisters and dimmers and all that. They didn't have halogen lights to light up the room. He wrote this with the daylight that was coming through at the daylight time, maybe, but he spent the majority of his time in darkness. But spiritually, Paul stayed in the light. I mean, read his words as you go through the church epistles. Nothing about him screams of depression, and nothing about him screams that he needed to take some anxiety meds. Nothing about him screams that, man, this guy was having a bad time. He's not having the molly grubs.